Welcome to the IfMagic tutorial on comparisons. Comparisons are a way of putting different types of inputs into equations. If you don't know what equations are, you don't know what inputs are, you don't know what I'm talking about, please check out our Intro to Equations tutorial. Now, in order to get started, we're going to take our device, we're going to turn it on, we're going to connect to it, and we're going to go to our equation creation menu. Once we're in our equation creation menu, we're going to start with the same way that we did in our last video, where we used a button to control a light, by saying when this happens, do this, from our logic menu. Now, this time, instead of using a button to control our light, we're going to use a proximity sensor, which measures how close something is to the sensor. Now, the reason we need a comparison here is that while a button is either on or off, pressed or not pressed, the proximity sensor just returns a value. And that value on its own can't tell a light whether to turn on or off until you compare it to something. So what we're going to do is we're going to tap this happens for our input, and you'll see our binary sensors and then a big comparison thing. We're going to tap that comparison button, and it's going to open our compare menu. Now the compare menu has three main pieces to it. It has a variable, it has comparison logic in the middle, and then the variable that's being compared to. So let's start with that first variable. Tap the variable, and we see four options: modules, value, count, duration. Now, in this case, we're using a proximity sensor, which is a module, so we're going to go ahead and tap modules, find proximity in the menu. Our proximity property is amount, and we'll see that the range is 0 to 100. And before we click on module, like always, we're going to set our port, and our proximity module is in port 6 here, so we'll tap the port 1, scroll down to port 6, set hardware, add module. And now our compare menu reads amount of proximity, then the comparison logic, and then variable. Now the comparison logic this time, right, we want something to be closer, which means it's going to have a greater value here, right? So we're going to say is greater than, and then it needs to be greater than something. We're going to hit the last variable. We're going to hit a value this time, and we know the range is 0 to 100. Let's cut it halfway. Let's say 50. You're going to type in 50, add value. Now our comparison now reads the amount of proximity is greater than 50. All right, add compare. Our equation is now when amount of proximity is greater than 50, do this. For do this, we're going to use our glow module again. We're going to hit outputs, glow. We'll go for a light blue this time. Don't forget to set your port. We're going to go to port 2 here where our glow module is, set hardware, add output. Now we have our equation. Now just like last time with the button, if proximity gets greater than 50 once, the glow module will turn on, but it'll stay on and I won't be able to continue to do the interaction. So what we have to do here is add the inverse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my logic menu, click when this happens, add a new when statement, go to this happens, and we're going to need another comparison. So we're going to hit comparison again, but this time it's going to be the opposite. So we still have our first variable is proximity. We still set our port to port 6. Always remember to set the port. Set hardware, add module. This time we're going to say when it's less than 50, right? So that means I'm further away from the proximity module. Add value. So now we have amount of proximity is less than 50, add compare, and we go to our glow module and we say brightness to 0, so it turns off. And we set the port as well. So now we have when amount of proximity is greater than 50, set glow to light blue, and when amount of proximity is less than 50, set glow brightness to 0. We're going to go ahead, create the equation, cast it to the device, just like we did before. And now that we've cast our equation onto the device, you'll see as I get closer, once I trip that proximity of 50, the light turns on. When I come further away, it turns off. And we can see that 50 is about there on our proximity sensor. So that's how you use a comparison, and you can do the same with any of the modules that return a value in order to get a truth result that will let you do something like turn a light on and off or control any output.